St. Louis. Like to say good morning. It's a beautiful, beautiful Saturday here in Florida. My prayers go out to the families in Miami, which is such a tragedy as it relates to the building collapse. My prayers go out to all. There's so many out here that are unfortunately are suffering, not just in Florida and St. Louis, but all over the world. I don't think we take time out to think about what goes on in Congo and various other places around the world. As I said, we got 7 continents, and there's quite a bit of turmoil going on throughout this world. You know, just this morning, I'm going to share some with you, and we're going to go somewhat just a little deep. I'm going to go as the Spirit lead me, but I was trying to come to understand why the life expectancy is so short, but yet, based upon how old the universe is so broad. Universe is approximately, as they say, 13.8 billion years old, and the Earth itself is about 4.5 billion years old, which, if you do the math, we're looking at quite a bit of difference. But what I'm beginning to understand, is it possible that we, or those that came up with the understanding of math, was calculating math based upon power and based upon energy and not numerical numbers? Is that possible? In other words, if we say that the universe is 13.8 billion years old, but the life expectancy is about 60 to 80 in the 21st century. But if you go back to the 1800s, I think life expectancy, early 1800s, was probably about 35 to 40 years old. However, if you go back then, they might not look at it as the way we look at it now, that they didn't live long, even though they were 35 and 40, and we're 80 and 90, based upon our cognitive ability to understand or to be able to perceive beyond that age. So I'm wanting to believe that it has nothing to do with numbers. It has something to do with power. I think that we, unfortunately, have not reached a level of intelligence that can free us from this dark world. I think everything is based on intelligence, not intelligence as you know intelligence. Because some people will say, well, so-and-so is smart. He went to Harvard, Yale, Princeton. He's a Nobel laureate. He's smarter than Einstein with a 200 IQ. But what happens if we have the ability to exceed 200 IQs and reach an unlimited IQ? We're talking about 300 to 400 billion IQs, to where being able to process information around us becomes, we could do it with ease. It happens normally. So as a result of being able to process it, that lets me know there's nothing that's keeping us from understanding or processing. In other words, we're not trapped in some type of a gravitational field that will keep us from crunching that number, meaning the mind. So I'm going to believe that we, unfortunately, have not reached a higher level of intelligence, and as a result, we're perishing. But being that we haven't reached that level of intelligence, we, unfortunately, are mentally challenged. We're living in darkness. We're dying. Many of you will agree that as life goes on, you're going to decay. Body's going to end up getting sick and diseased, and as a result, your light's going to continue to go out. You're going to have, unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of death, a lot of murder, a lot of rape, a lot of pillage, a lot of wars and rumors of wars. And the reason being is because we haven't reached the full level of intellect. We've unfortunately turned the Bible into fables and stories, and subsequently we fail to realize exactly what the Bible is actually saying. That's one of the reasons we have religious wars. We got Muslims against Christians, Buddhists, Hinduism, so many different religions. And I think for the most part, many of them are cults. It's an algorithm. When a group of people get together and they all believe the same things, because they all meet at the same location at the same time, and subsequently they become connected, entangled. And they become entangled for 20, 30 years, and as a result of the entanglement, they believe that they're actually growing intellectually, but they're perishing because they never reach the full truth of what life holds for them. In other words, they're going and getting involved in these different religions, but at the same time, are they intellectually astute? And they look at the physicists and scientists as not being of God, and they're looking at deities outside. But if you take into consideration, if the physicists were wrong, in other words, you wouldn't be able to see and do the things and use the things that you're using, such as televisions, satellites, internet, etc., is all based upon some of the physicists. Now, the physicists themselves are you. You're all the same. In other words, you're a living organism, no different than the physicists, except your ideologies are different. But at the same time, the physicists are also perishing. Cosmologists, doctors and lawyers, judges, doesn't make a difference. I think after 90 years or so, if you're at that age, you're going to be suffering from a tremendous amount of diseases, and your cognitive ability is going to start diminishing, Alzheimer's, dementia. And they say as time progresses, it's going to get worse. So ask yourself this question, and I think if we are literally dying every day, living in a small percentage of what we consider to be the universe, which is only 100 years, based upon life expectancy, that tells me we're going the wrong way intellectually. If we can reach a higher level of awareness and finish the course, we can warp space and time. Time is an illusion, but the illusion is the limited ability of power that you possess, which causes time. If somebody has cancer and they give you 3 to 4 years based upon the stage of the cancer, you associate the years that they've given you as years, but that is you're depleting in power. So look at it from the perspective of power. You're running out of power. So if we can subsequently warp space and time and reach a higher level of awareness based on cognition, we would no longer be in darkness that can deplete our power. Subsequently, we'd be able to see things that we were incapable of seeing. The borders would subsequently come down. 190 plus countries wouldn't be. We wouldn't have to establish whether or not there's borders for Mexico, China, you got Europe and Russia, etc., because we wouldn't fight one another. Why would we fight one another if we all have the same level of intellect? Right now, we all are, unfortunately, on the scale of illiterate. But you don't think you're literate. You think you're intelligent. You think you're smart. You think you got the understanding of and the reason being is because you're smarter than the guy that his cognitive ability is not working as great as yours, but you both, unfortunately, haven't finished the course. As long as you live in life expectancy of 100 years, you are going to die. In the story, you're going to not necessarily die as you state, because energy subsequently changes states. So I'm not going to necessarily say die as you consider death. You just change states, from liquid, vapor, gas, solid to whatever it may be. But it appeared to be because you're encoding the things that you see. So your inability to encode is a reference of your mind, the strength of your mind. Subsequently, is going to be death to you because your mind can't go beyond the level of power in which it possesses. I know I kind of went out there and I had more to talk about, but I try to go as the Spirit lead me. But what we must begin to understand, just because you grew up in the projects, Car Square, or wherever, it doesn't make a difference. It's just that you have to focus on studying and working hard to strengthen your mind, your prefrontal cortex, hippocampus, and make it whatever they called it. We can go ahead and agree. Whatever they called it, that's what. If that's what they want it to be, it'll be. It can be that in order for us to universally work together as a world. That's fine. However, I'm going to believe that if we can reach a higher level of awareness, we can literally bring space, which is minus friction and heat, which is the furthest planet as they known as Neptune, down here to Earth. In order to do that, we strengthen our minds. We start bringing the planets down here. The planets are not outside you as they appear. You say, yes, they are. They got into a space shuttle. They're getting ready to go up into outer orbit. No. When they got into that spacecraft, they encoded it, just like they encoded themselves when they was in their mother's womb before they came out, before their mother contracted and subsequently pumped them out. They were doing the encoding. Subsequently, I'm one to believe that's one of the reasons we are so blind, because we were in the oven. And the oven basically allowed us to become or be able to deal with the environment in which we dwell. Once we came out, we had already conformed, because you were there for 9 months, 8, 7 months, however long you were there. They're being baked. So as a result of being baked in the oven, you conformed to the reality in which you were pushed out into. He already got that from the time you were a kid. You start off as an embryo or your mother's seed, and subsequently your father fertilized your mother's egg, and subsequently you were being cooked. You were being cooked to only work 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time, and as a result, your mind was literally programmed to follow in that system of death, of darkness. Now you're thinking, okay, well, if for some reason we wouldn't have been born, we wouldn't have been in the mother's wombs, how would we have come here? Well, this is what I'm trying to get you to understand. Okay, we were born in darkness. So if your mother and father had you before they were entrenched in darkness, in other words, they were in perfect light, you would have came out in perfect light. And subsequently, you would have been going in the opposite direction of death, but going towards 13.8 billion years. You would have become the truth, and you wouldn't look at the world the way you look at it now. You have no choice but to look at it the way you look at it, because you don't have enough brain power to process anything beyond your level of awareness. You can't see. You got eyes that can't see and ears that can't hear, but it's not your fault. If we can come to the realization that we were blind and unable to see, and formulated religion based upon our inability to discern, and hallucinations based upon a lack of oxygen, we would be able to understand and be able to now repair the breach and reverse the laws of thermodynamics, entropy, and subsequently disease, death, heart, strokes, diabetes, all these different types of infirmities will not occur. Murder, rape, pillage wouldn't occur because there's too much light. It's too much positive sound, and it wouldn't occur. So I'm not going to take long. Like I said, we cannot go back to the old ways of doing things. Many of you are excited. The vaccine or the virus itself has subsided somewhat. You're enjoying the 4th. You're going back to the same traditions of men. I'm going to share some with you. You must come to understand. You can't go back. You have to fight to become aware of what you weren't aware before that pandemic struck. Most people go back. And as a result of going back, their grandchildren and great-grandchildren will encounter the same things that we encountered in the 21st century. Nothing will change. We have to take advantage of this situation now because we are aware of it now. Our kids are not going to be aware of us wearing masks when they reach our grandkids, when they reach 50, 60 years old, and subsequently it hits them. And all those that have not strengthened in mind will be affected by those viruses. And they're still affected by those viruses. They just don't know it. It just hadn't showed a sign, or they don't have the technology to test them to see that they have a certain disease. Many of you already got the disease. They don't have the equipment to go deep enough to show that you have the disease. You just don't know. So it's important that we strengthen in mind. And once we do so, I believe that we can reverse the laws of thermodynamics. Entropy that's increasing will decrease. We will subsequently be able to eradicate darkness, and subsequently we will manifest that perfect sound and that perfect light, and we would in turn change our reality. It will change, just like turning the channel of your television. It will change, and as a result you will see the world face to face. Shout out to my grandbaby Noah. Granddaddy, love you, son. Continue to listen to your mother and father. Shout out to Winton and Catherine. Continue to grind there in Oregon. See you guys relatively soon in August. Shout out to Zion, my grandbaby Nile. I guess I don't know if Zion's going to name him Nile or not. She's kind of undecisive, her and Gabe. But shout out to you, Nile. I love you. I know you'll be here in October, but you're here already. Shout out to Walter, as well as Danielle. Shout out to you and your family. Shout out to New York. Shout out to Georgia, Alabama. Miss you guys out there in Alabama and Georgia. Kathy, tell my girl I said hello. Randy, I noticed you came on. Dale, as well as the rest of the crew. It's not easy, unfortunately. Shout out to the Bahamas, Florida. Chi-Town in the house. Tanya, that's right. Tanya, I don't sleep, girl. I'm always up. Better ask somebody. But anyway, also shout out to Pete. Pete, we have work to do, no question about it, and we're going to get it done. May God continue to give you the strength to understand that you must become who you're predestined to become. And also remember, it's not about the start. Growing up in Car Square Village and the projects going to be, it's about the finish. I'm grateful and thankful that I grew up in the projects coming up as a child, because I wouldn't have that reference point that I have right now to be able to crunch the numbers and see things the way I see them. Until next time, may God bless you all. God bless.